Hi everyone, this is Betsy Sobiek. I am with Tiara International. I'm one of the global leaders here, and with me today is Andrea Henning.
Hi, everybody, on
And
this Friday evening here in the Netherlands already.
I know it's Friday afternoon here in Chicago, and it's warm. I think it's hot both places. That doesn't always
Absolutely.
happen, but I heard it's 30 degrees Celsius in the Netherlands. It's 95 Fahrenheit here. It's about the same.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, hot, hot, hot. So happy
Yes.
summertime, everybody. Today on our Friday Facebook Live, Andre and we decided to talk about something that I think the majority of us experience, except for
Mhm.
maybe a very few of us. And it's something Andrea and I ourselves personally struggle with, yet it's so important to demystify and to talk about and look about head on, which is how do we keep promises to ourselves? So, those of you who follow our work know that in the Tiara model for true leadership, we often say, at the end of the day, everyone is a leader because we are each leading our own lives. And we're accountable for so many choices we make throughout the day. Some of it practical things about what we do, who we spend time with, what our goals are. Some internal and intangible things like our attitude, our mindset, where we put our energy, our attention. So there's a lot of power we have, even in the face of circumstances that we can't control. Yet, with so many of our clients, and even with ourselves, we find the person that we break promises to the most. We say we're gonna, work out at a certain time, or we're gonna get up at a certain time in the morning, or we're going to go to that yoga class, or we're going to be 10 minutes early for whatever appointment, and then we do something to get in our own way and break our promises to ourselves. And we just want to talk about what the impact is of that, why we might do that, how we might be able to develop a stronger relationship with our personal commitments and promises so
Hmm.
that we do that less and less and actually build a stronger and more trusting relationship with ourselves along the way. Andrea, I know that you in particular thought of this topic. You brought it up earlier this week as one that you really wanted to talk about. Why was that? What's been happening for you and for the people in your circle that made you think this was something good to talk about?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was something good to talk about, of course, because it comes from my own experience. I was so flabbergasted how over and over again I was able to break my promises with myself. And the most devastating thing there was that with that and I really was committed. That was not the things that I promised to myself lightly. It was even the promises that I had felt a deep commitment to, that I started out really disciplined and gained momentum, and then something happened that made me fall off the wagon and I lost all my momentum. And I thought, how could I do that? So yeah, therefore I also tried to dig deeper into that phenomena, and I came out with an answer for myself. But I know as we dig deep into that phenomena, at least if you also recognize that, it might be different um, causes that you come across. So it might be what I discovered about why I fall off the wagon might be something different than for you. But
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely an inquiry worth having, like especially when you have gained momentum and give it away again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really angry at myself that I did that. Really. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Now, at the same time, one of the things we also really talk about is self-compassion. So
Hmm.
there's this balance between keeping promises to ourselves, being really very, I was going to say rigid. I don't feel like that's the right word, but being really clear with ourselves, not letting ourselves off the hook, maybe. Yet at the same time, there are things that happen and there are different ways that we overpromise even to ourselves or say we're going to do something perfectly and then we fail. So, in your experience, can you talk a little bit more just about what you discovered, like why you were breaking promises to
Hmm.
yourself, but how
Hmm.
you also want to bring self-acceptance and self-compassion to it, because I also think that we're really, really hard on ourselves and want ourselves
Yeah,
to be perfect when we shouldn't be, and
yeah,
our own worst critics. So how do you
absolutely.
balance both of those things?
Yeah, it's funny because I know our line of work is about not making, not putting, setting goals that are not goals that are very close to our heart. So that was the surprising thing for me, because I think I did a pretty good job along the years not to overpromise to myself, not to take on too ambitious goals, and set myself up for failure in the first place. So I think I've done a pretty good job in that, and so it was even more surprising that I still, even if I was totally committed and also compassionate with everything that I've on my plate, still fell off the wagon. And what I found out for myself with this last inquiry, and maybe it's a little easier to explain when I talk about what is it that I really took on, that's not strange or foreign for a lot of our listeners maybe too. It had to do with my vitality and health. I overstretched myself very structurally, and this is a whole pattern, to the degree in 2017 that with the greatest job in the world, I could not think about how do I make it into 2018 not feeling that great. So I made a real commitment to my vitality. I started out with long walks. Doesn't matter what I had on my plate. I started with these long walks, and I felt better, and I started to lose weight. And then I went to a trip to Iceland to visit my son, and then I fell off the wagon again. So then, after being totally angry, getting back to self-compassion, like, okay, don't beat yourself up for it, but get clarity. What is it exactly that's happening? And what I found for myself is that I was doing it alone, and that opened a totally new can of worms, like as patterns that I could see for myself, that I would rather show up than talking about the success, than letting myself help in the middle of that I really would need help and support from others. So I did it completely alone. And that was an eye opener for me. And with that eye opener and brutal honesty, why I was rather doing it on my own than sharing it with people, and asking for help, which is a whole world behind that. I decided to live one of my guidelines. You know that at Tiara we make our personal plans with wisdom guidelines, and one of my wisdom guidelines was, or still is, always ask for the truth. It will set you free. So I finally went to a um, someone who could help me. It's a dietist, but it's also a vitality coach, and she takes all kinds of tests with your blood and everything. I've never done that before. So then I had to face the truth, and now I let her help me to keep my promise. And that sounds so simple, but totally resisted that part of being totally open and honest, not only to myself, but share it with someone, and actually have someone help me with that.
Okay, so great. So those of you who may be just joining us here on our Facebook Live today with Tiara International, Andrea and I, Betsy Sobiak, we're talking about why we break promises to ourselves and how we can keep them. So Andrea, in your story, you were saying at the end of the year, you really realized that you just felt like you wanted a breakthrough in your health and well-being and vitality. You were not feeling good. So you started the year with some goals, and you started sort of strong in your program of walking and taking care of yourself. Went on vacation and felt like everything that you had started lost momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your reflection of it, you realized that part of the issue for you was that you were just trying to do it on your own without any support, without asking for help. So because of that, you have asked for support and help from a nutritionist and vitality coach who now is supporting you on this journey where you are making constant
Mm-hmm.
progress at this point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
So for that, and I think that's awesome. So I feel like you're right. Like in any situation, we may see a pattern that we each have about why we don't keep a promise, whether it's in a certain area or
Mm-hmm.
across the board. Yeah, I think this one that you highlighted is really important because so many times we do try to accomplish a personal goal ourselves. And like you said, we just want to announce the success, or we just want to get down the road and have everybody say, oh, that was great. You know, how did you get
Yes.
there? Without having to tell everybody, okay, I have this goal. And by admitting I have this goal, it means I have like this weakness or this deficit or this place where I'm struggling. And I need some help in how to get there because what I know to do, or even my own personal commitment, will waver if I don't share it with somebody else.
Exactly.
And I think that is a pitfall that we often fall into. Like we just want to do it ourselves, and we do kind of lose momentum or get distracted for other things first without
Mm.
that accountability partnership in some way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So Betsy, do you have an example for yourself that you fell off the wagon, and what was the pattern that you were talking about, that you could decipher? Because I know that you also took something on and made it through.
Yeah, I feel like I have examples every day. I mean, I think I'm with a lot of the people on this call, not everybody, but who I will promise myself every day a certain time I'm going to get up in the next morning, and I don't do it. I decide to sleep a little bit later because my first meeting is until later, or I decide I'm going to, do a workout or a yoga class, or I'm going to meditate in my yoga room or something like that. So for me, it's an ongoing thing that I struggle with in terms of what is it that I want to do for myself. And for me, I struggle at each point along along the process. So the first point is the very beginning, which is what commitments do I want to make for myself?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so the first thing that I really need to do is create the time to make those promises. So instead of just shoving things into my calendar or thinking that I'm behind or comparing myself to what other people do, the first thing I need to do is just stop and be very intentional about what it is that I'm promising. So that's one pattern, is when I just get swept up in my calendar, or when I am comparing myself to what I think I should do or feeling pressured. I will just put a bunch of stuff in there that I don't really think I'm ever planning on doing, but makes me
Hmm.
feel, I put it in. So that's the first thing. And then I do this other thing, like if I know that I really want to be keeping my promises to myself, the other thing that I do is I imagine the next day, and I imagine myself doing those things. So I really think about like, okay, so if I get up, what I do with the dog, how I get to the place I want to go, when I'm going to be doing rest, when I'm going to be doing reflection. And if I visualize the next day and include those components and know how it's going to fit together, that also really, really helps me, which is great.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
And then the the last part is the same. Like I feel like when I do have a promise I've made to another person. So there's a couple things. One is my personality is that I'm very deadline driven, which means I do things. I will always make the deadline, but sometimes it'll be at the last minute. And that relates to accountability, promise driven as well, which means if I promise someone else, there's visibility, and I definitely am motivated not to let people down. So if there's an area where I do feel like I'm not strong enough just to do what I know to do for myself, having a promise to somebody, creating a project with somebody, doing it with somebody, having a deadline, like all of those are all strategies that I have used in order to make it happen. Because at the end of the day, I'm in many ways a super strong person, both internally and externally. One of my mantras has often been like, I'm one of the strongest people that I know, and not because I have to be. It's just something that's worked for me. But I'm not strong enough to do everything on my own, for
Hmm.
sure. And so in those areas where I know that I'm not strong enough to do everything on my own, I just need to create that web of accountability. But those
Hmm.
other two things help too, like being very intentional and not over promising,
Hmm.
and then imagining how the day is going to flow that has those
Hmm.
components in it that are important to me. The other thing I would say that I'm actually good at, that some people may not be so good at, is that when I'm not feeling well, I'm pretty good at like stopping,
Mm-hmm.
take time for myself when I need it, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
not planned or a promise, but more of the
Mm-hmm.
spontaneous, like, oh, I can tell I'm getting a little sideways, so I just need a moment, or I need 15 minutes, or I need
Mm-hmm.
to, step away from everything in the middle of the day, so that I can feel more centered for sure.
Yeah, great, great. Yeah, yeah. So what you mentioned actually also is knowing yourself and knowing your personality, knowing what helps you, figuring out a strategy that helps you, that supports you, and being, yeah, but also knowing that promises to yourself are important, huh? And at the beginning of this little chat that we have, you asked why this topic is so close to my heart. It has also to do with the fact that I see how much, especially women, try to keep promises to others, and you also mention it as a strategy. Like women love do things with others, and so even if you have an appointment to go to the gym with someone else, we might be more inclined to not bail out and do it. And there is a little tricky thing in that too that I have seen, especially in women, is that the promises they make to others come first, and the promises they make to themselves is kind of the exchange money. And how that, for instance, plays out in a very particular way is whenever we have programmed, for instance, for Tiara, a nice workshop that women have signed up more or less for free. And they're really looking forward to, oh, this is time for myself. And they're signed in. And we can really be sure that at the end of the day, at the day itself, they cancel for whatever reason. And it's just because they are so exhausted. So this is the only time, and they have scheduled for themselves. So they just don't make the finish line for themselves.
Right.
And at the other end, even when it comes to women's circles in corporations, and you talk to people who have that in their portfolio, they say, if we have 65 women signed in, and we have organized the rooms, and we have all the foods and the drinks, and then more or less half of them just don't show up, and it's because of that. So there's also something about that I find quite intriguing.
Yeah, when I hear you say that, I also feel like it's interesting to think about the nature of a promise we can make to ourselves. Because one promise can be more goal oriented,
Yeah.
like I promise myself that I'm going to get a new job, or that I'm going to travel, or that I'm going to take care of my health and well being, or whatever the things are. However, I also feel like there's promises we can make to ourselves that are a little bit more fluid. It's more like just a promise to take care of ourselves, to be tuned in, to rest,
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
to treat ourselves like we treat other people that we really care about.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the balance of like the external commitment of here's the thing I want to accomplish, and I'm telling myself that yes, this is the year I'm going to do it, and I know that that puts my life on a path I'd be really proud of. And then also just the more moment to moment, like, and I promise myself that I'll be there for myself, and I won't let myself down, and if I'm tired, I'll allow myself to rest, and that kind of thing. Because
Yeah.
I think there is a pitfall of over promising to everybody, including
Mm-hmm.
ourselves,
Yeah.
putting everything in the calendar, and then just
Mm-hmm.
feeling horrible. And
Yeah.
I would say if there was a wish that I had for people listening, it would be that that we all have the courage to make the promises. Like, here's the thing I'm really going to go for. I know in my heart of hearts I would love it. I would be proud of myself. It would fill me
Mm-hmm.
with inspiration if I did it. And then you start down the path, and when you have a misstep or you lose momentum or whatever, that you just do have that patience with yourself. That it's more of
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, that didn't work. So what's
Mm-hmm.
next? Is it that the
Yeah.
promise is something you don't
Mm-hmm.
want, or that you need more accountability, or something like that? But just the harshness I hear that our clients and sometimes ourselves talk about ourselves when we let ourselves down, it just makes me cringe. We can be so harsh talking to
Yeah.
ourselves.
And it's not motivating. It's not motivating to be that harsh. This is something Christine Neff has a fantastic TED talk. Maybe we can include that in our in the links about self-compassion and about really how beating ourselves up brings us further away from what we are actually wanting to do, and that it's absolutely not inspiring, not motivating. But there is this fear of self-indulgence if we let ourselves off the hook. So that's really awesome to listen to, and it ties into self-compassion, ties into also how important just being mindful about how we treat ourselves and how we are in the world is an important component.
Scenario that you're talking about, which is awesome, that you made a couple of starts toward working on your vitality and some progress, and then you slipped back again, got angry about it, which is fine, and then chose another path. I've heard people talk about stuff like that, and they say things like, I can't believe I need a nutritionist. I can't believe I couldn't do it myself, or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
Harsh on themselves. And I always feel like saying, you're so wise to get the support that you need. How lucky that you found the person that can help you. And what an amazing thing that even after a few backward steps, you kept on going. Like I just feel like with every promise that we make ourselves, everything that we hold dear, whenever we fail, that there's equally amount of things to acknowledge around even starting in the first place. Like I'll have clients come to the call, I'm sure you do too, where they're like, I just did all my homework or my practices last night, I'm so bad at blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, but that's why you have a coach, because if you didn't have a coach, you wouldn't have done any of those things ever. And you're smart enough and wise enough and committed enough to your progress that you signed up with a person such that you will do those things. So let's just call perfect timing and wisdom and strategic thinking, as opposed to like a character flaw. So the thing that I would wish is that people would just ease up on the pressure, on themselves in the way that they're, and not, to your point, and you're really good at reminding me of this, to not necessarily be too positive and let me off the hook, or, paint everything rosy when maybe there is a pattern to be broken or an issue to be looked at or something like that. But it's just the being so hard on ourselves that I just wish that the way we could feel that, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There is another thing about breaking your promises, like, and also an advocacy for setting yourself up for success. So making promises to yourself that you can actually keep, is that when you get better at that, it really is a boost to your self-confidence. And that's also our 15 Days to Wow program is such a great program to help us make little steps to build this momentum of pride. It is set up. It's actually a program that sets us up for success, because it's fun and it's without this pressure. And it's repeatedly saying, when you fall off the wagon, just get back on, and celebrate all kinds of little successes, and also being together in it, being in community. And this is also one of the things, when we compare ourselves to others, we often think that, oh, others have it all together and we haven't, which is so not true. If we are honest, we struggle with the same things.
Yeah.
And this is also something that is really soothing, that we are all humans and we struggle with the same things. It's not the things that we talk about a lot because we don't want to be the victims. But at the end of the day, it's just the whole human experience is about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think that it does come down to a few key reminders for folks. One is to not overpromise yourself and make sure what you're promising feels really true and something you're really inspired to do. To structurally put it in your day, to visualize it or calendar it, map it into part of your day. And the other is to have accountability support so that you're not alone in trying to go for it. And that might be like a person that you walk with in the morning. It might be an accountability partner, it might be a coach of some kind, but you put that structure in with people who have the same and similar goals that really support you in showing up and doing what you know to do. And there is just nothing wrong with that at all. At the end of the day, we all do that. It's one of the reasons why we did invent the Tiara Resource Circle, which is our virtual community where people from all over the world can join it. And we have a monthly call where people can bring whatever issues they're facing professionally or even personally. And we use our model for true leadership and our tools to work through whatever presenting issue. We have monthly additional content that we do, and then there's ways that they can access coaches, etc., as they need them. But even that, like monthly structure, every month, the first Tuesday of every month, you have a phone call where you can show up, carve an hour out of your week, and just work through something that's on your mind or a situation you're facing with people who can support you, and that is awesome. So we wanted to provide that for people, that accountability structure that's not too in your business. I mean, we're all smart, intelligent people who've accomplished a lot. So none of us really want to be micromanaged or judged along the way. But
or advised.
Advised, told what to do. But along the way, we have we call it gracious accountability structure, where we're held to account for what we say we most desire. We have found that it really, really does help. Yep. So, Andrea, anything else you want to say as we get to our final moments here?
No, I think it's an important message, and wherever you are, just in the middle of the momentum or just having fallen off the wagon, maybe you feel inspired just to be kind to yourself, reflect back, go to the core, recommit, and try again. And we are there. We're here for you.
Absolutely. So if you like these doses of Tiara Talk on Fridays, you can either like and follow our Facebook page, Tiara International, and then you'll know when we're live, or subscribe to our YouTube channel, which we always repost these there. So there are new videos happening there every week. And you can check out our website at Tiara that's like this kind of hyphen, Tiara-leadership.com, where you can learn more about the resource circle or things that we have coming up for sure. So in the meantime, make sure that today you keep a promise to yourself, that you treat yourself well, and that if you have to adjust things or something like that, that you go easy on yourself in the process. But doing that one thing you know to do for yourself, you're worth it, and it makes a big difference in terms of starting that momentum one step at a time, taking you toward what you say you most want, and just building that relationship of trust within your own self.
Exactly.
All right.
Good.
Thanks.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Nice weekend. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.